Thank you for inviting me to speak at this event, and thank you, Yashas Arya, particularly for providing useful information about the purpose of this event. Let me introduce you the two organizations that I work for, which Major just briefly introduced previously. The first, the Uyghur Human Rights Project, where I have my full-time position as Chinese outreach coordinator. The Uyghur Human Rights Project was founded by the Uyghurs in the United States in 2003. We needed to fill a huge gap. All the mainstream human rights organizations published almost nothing on the terrible human rights abuse in our homeland of East Turkestan. Since then, we have released more than 90 reports and briefings based on international human rights standards found in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and all the major UN human rights treaties and covenants. The second organization that I work for is the World Uyghur Congress, not conference. I serve as vice president on a voluntary basis. The World Uyghur Congress strives to promote democracy, human rights, and freedom for the Uyghur people through peaceful, non-violent, and democratic means. The World Uyghur Congress engages in a wide range of awareness raising and advocacy campaign about the human rights situation for Uyghurs in China, concentrating on the United States Congress, EU member states, as well as EU and UN human rights mechanisms. Now, what's the relationship between the communist China and the Uyghurs? Uyghurs are linguistically Turkic-speaking people, ethnically belong to Central Eurasia. According to China's official statistics, around 13 million Uyghurs live in East Turkestan, or the current so-called Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, which was renamed by the Chinese government in 1955. The literal meaning of Xinjiang is in Chinese, is new territory or new dominant. The region was occupied by the People's Liberation Army in 1949. Since the Chinese Communist occupation of the Uyghur region, the Chinese administration has governed the native Uyghurs with deception and suppression. The Chinese authorities have long violated Uyghurs' cultural, linguistic, and religious rights, marginalizing them in their own homeland. The crackdown on the Uyghur people didn't ease despite the Uyghur people's non-stop dissatisfaction towards the governing policies. In fact, it has gotten worse since the Xi Jinping, the current Chinese president, took power. Especially since 2016, China has turned the Uyghur region into a high-tech surveillance and military state. Now, let me move on to the genocide that happened to Uyghurs. The Uyghur people are experiencing a 21st century high-tech genocide. Over the past 5 years, the Chinese government has set up 24/7 surveillance system to control Uyghurs through facial recognition cameras on every street and the mandatory tracking apps on phones. This capability should be a concern to everyone, not only people living under the Chinese government's authoritarian rule, as China is exporting this technology to the world. In 2017, the government began rounding up ordinary people and throwing them into concentration camps. Our best estimate is that 1.8 to 3 million people have been taken. In these camps, the women's hair was cut off, they were given unknown drug injections and pills. They were subject to many hours per day of forced indoctrination, forced to shout over and over, saying, "There is no God, I don't believe in God, I believe in the Communist Party, my mind was infected by an ideological disease." People are tortured with electric shocks, beatings, and sexual assault. Forced labor, it's another major issue. There is also a massive program of state-imposed forced labor. It doesn't matter if you are a teacher or a farmer or a student or a business owner, you are forced to work in in food processing, gums factories, and production of components for solar panels. According to reports, during the pandemic period, India traded with China over $100 billion worth of products. Major traded products were pharmaceutical goods and electronics. There are concerns that these types of products may be tainted with the Uyghur forced labor. As researchers, you may wish to question those Indian business companies whether they are aware of Uyghur forced labor. By buying Chinese-made products, are Indian business entities contributing to China's genocide against Uyghurs? Now let me move on to religious repression. 16,000 mosques have been destroyed and thousands of cemeteries bulldozed. People are sentenced to 7 or 8 years in prison just for praying. According to our organization, the Uyghur Human Rights Project's research, since 2014, 1,046 imams and other religious figures have been detained in the camps or imprisoned for their association with religious teaching and community leadership. The data reveals that of the 1,046 recorded cases, 428 have been sent to formal prisons, including 304 sentenced to prison terms. Of the cases with sentencing information, 96% have received prison terms of 5 years or more, and 25% were sentenced to 20 years or more, often on unclear charges. Another 202 religious figures have been detained in the camps. 18 have died while in detention or in prison. Another horrific atrocity is forced sterilization and forced birth control. Forced sterilization, forced abortion, and forced birth control measures have meant that the Uyghur birth rate dropped by 50% between 2017 and 2019. The UHRP will soon release a report about the government program to pressure Uyghurs into interracial marriages. In essence, this is a cruel policy of ethnic eradication. And another area is transnational repression. The Chinese government's pursuit of Uyghurs does not stop at China's borders. It is conducting a comprehensive program of transnational repression that includes threats, smears, taking family members as a hostage, black renditions, and forcing Uyghurs to become informers in other countries. The government has created a secret interrogation center in Dubai where Uyghurs are taken. We documented 372 known cases of refoulement, illegal deportation of the Uyghurs to China, where they face certain detention, torture, or worse. Also, the Chinese government refused to renew the passports of Uyghurs who are studying or working in other countries, such as UAE, Turkey, Malaysia, Japan, or anywhere else. This puts them in a completely desperate situation. They cannot extend their work visa or student visa. They cannot travel or on an expired passports. China puts tremendous pressure on the governments to return them to China. As described above, China's repression against the Uyghurs is worldwide. The One Belt, One Road initiative of China not only provided China with economic expansion to the world, but it also paves the way for China to control other countries' governing policies. For example, the situation of Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Kyrgyzstan, and many other countries. With that, keep in mind, China's genocide against Uyghurs requires absolute political control over East Turkestan and its people. If China succeeds in its overseas expansion, all the countries neighboring East Turkestan will be in China's sight next. In order to stop China's Zhongguomeng, which is Chinese Middle Kingdom dreams, we have to support each other. Thank you.